Welcome to Level Up Mechanics. My name is Chris, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're actually going to be installing a Toyota OEM power tailgate lock kit on my father's 3rd Gen Toyota Tundra. My father's Tundra is an SR5 double cab with a 6.5 foot bed, so we'll be installing the short wheelbase option. There is also a long wheelbase option for vehicles with a longer bed. So I'll make sure to provide a link in the description below to both of these options that are available from Toyota. These items can be purchased on Amazon, so make sure to check them out if you're interested in buying one for your particular vehicle. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the install. Alright, one of the very first steps when doing any electrical repairs or upgrades that are on a vehicle, you're always going to want to disconnect the negative battery clamp. It's just a good idea to protect yourself and all of the electronics on the vehicle if you disconnect the negative battery clamp if you're doing any type of electrical repair or upgrade. Now, this Toyota Power Tailgate Lock Kit is a plug-and-play item, so I don't think we have too much to worry about because we're not splicing into any wires or anything. We're just connecting into connectors that are already existing on the Toyota Tundra, but it's always better to be safe than sorry, so make sure that if you are apprehensive about doing this upgrade, just disconnect the negative cable from the battery and move it off to the side somewhere to where it won't pop back up and touch the negative post. Alright, so here we have the box that came in the mail with the OEM power tailgate kit. This is the part number for the short wheelbase option. I'll also provide a link in the description below for the long wheelbase option if you have a longer bed on your particular Tundra. But let's go ahead and see what's inside. We're going to have some wire harness protector clips that will actually go down here, right here, between the tailgate and the body. Here is our lock actuator assembly. Here is the wire harness for the tailgate side. Here is the wire harness for the body side that will lead up to the passenger front seat area. And then here we have some zip ties that were provided by Toyota, in addition to some adhesive that we'll use to secure the wire harness around the passenger front area of the vehicle. Alright, so now that we have all the parts for this kit, the first step is going to be to open up the access panel on the back of the tailgate, and it looks like there are going to be some T30 Torx screws or bolts that go all alongside the access panel over here. So let me go ahead and get this off and we'll move on to the next step. Alright, so if we look inside, we're looking at this upside down a little, but we have our tailgate handle assembly right here, and we have the lever mechanism, and what we'll most likely be doing is removing this 10mm bolt right here to install the tailgate lock actuator, and the tailgate lock actuator will actually connect right here at this pivot point where the actual lock cylinder is at. So let me go ahead and pull out the actuator, remove this 10mm bolt, and we'll install it onto the inside of the tailgate assembly. Alright, now that I have the 10mm bolt out, there's this notch on the end of the actuator right pull it out. There's this notch right here, and this notch is actually going to line up with the actual handle assembly. So we're going to place it down here near where the bolt is that we took out. And this notch, well you can see, but this notch actually lines up to slide into place against the actual handle assembly. So you line the notch up right there, and then you'll just insert the 10mm bolt into the first hole. Thread it in by hand to make sure that you don't cross thread anything, and once you get it started at that point you can tighten it up. You want to make sure that your rod actually slips in over here at this pivot point to sit on top. If the rod is all the way down, just pull it out by hand in order to reach this little pivot area right here, so that way you know that you're aligned properly with this pivot point on the hinge. Alright, now that the 10mm bolt is installed, we will take this clip, and what this clip does is it holds the rod in place on the pivot point on the hinge. With the teeth end pointing up, we're going to install this guy onto the little pivot point. It can be kind of hard because it's going to bite into the plastic. So one thing that I like to do is take my own handy dandy pocket screwdriver and help push it down into place. Also, when you're pushing down on that clip to connect the rod to the pivot point on the hinge for the lock, it would be a good idea to take a finger or two and hold it from the back side, just because there is some wiggle with this setup. So by pressing the back side of it up towards you, you're giving some extra support while you're trying to press the clip down to secure the actuator to this hinge. Now that the actuator is installed, we're going to go ahead and install the wire harness on the tailgate side for the Tundra. Now, in order to do this, we're probably going to run the wire harness in conjunction with the rear view camera, and it will exit out on the back side of this tailgate right here. You have these two clips right here that hold and protect the harness between the tailgate and the body. You'll be replacing these clips with the ones Toyota has provided that allow two wire harnesses to go through the tailgate and the body, as opposed to just the one. So what you want to do is pop out this clip right here on the body side and this clip right here on the tailgate side. Take it off. You may want to make a marking on the OEM harness for the rear view camera, just so that you have enough slack like you did before you took this apart. So you want to make sure that the length is identical between the tailgate and the body. So some people use masking tape. I'm probably just going to use a Sharpie and just make a mark on it enough to where I can see it, and then we'll route the wiring harness through the tailgate and through the body of the vehicle. Let me go and take off these clips, and then I'll show you where the harness goes. Now that the clips are off, we can see right here that they're removed off the body, off the tailgate. Now we're going to use the harness for the tailgate side and route it from the actuator out through the tailgate and into the body. Toyota has provided a couple of zip ties to use if you need them to just hold the wire harness in parallel with the rear view camera. So use these at your own discretion. It's time to route it. Alright, so after about 5 minutes of fiddling around how to figure out how to route the tailgate wire harness the best possible way, the Tundras, they don't have a lot of room inside of the tailgate to actually stick your hand in there and route it through the hole on the back of the tailgate. And because of this, the best way to install the tailgate wire harness is to actually start by feeding in the harness through the hole opening right here, and with the female end of the wiring harness going in first. That way you can actually feed the tailgate harness through the tailgate and not have to try to fiddle around going the other way, trying to catch the connector on the other end and going through this really small hole. So when you install the harness on the tailgate, feed it through the hole and go towards the actuator. Don't go the other way. Otherwise you'll be spending a lot of time fiddling around and not getting anywhere. So now that the wire harness is fed through the tailgate, we'll go ahead and secure the harness. In order to do this, first we need to plug in the connector to the actuator. Then you'll have this little plastic clip that's already installed on the harness. That will go on the second hole right here on the actuator. That will hold the harness in place, after which the rest of the harness you just want to zip tie as much as you can to the existing rear view camera harness to hold it in place. So let me go ahead and secure the harness and we'll move on to the next step. Alright, now that the harness is in place and zip tied in a couple of points, running parallel with the rear view camera harness, next up is to install these guys right here and put them in between the tailgate and the body of the bed. So you'll just choose one hole for your rear view camera and the other hole will be for the harness for the tailgate lock. You'll install clips on both sides and then we'll move on to the main wire harness portion. Now that the clips for the body and for the tailgate are installed, I also installed the last two zip ties that came with the tailgate harness. Just snugly put them with the harness for the rear view camera. Just got to cut these off and we should be good. I'm going to open and close the tailgate, make sure we don't have any problems with the additional wire harness before we continue. And it looks just fine. Alright, now that the tailgate lock actuator is installed, the wire harness is routed through the bed of the truck. Now we're going to go over to the passenger front door area and start routing the harness from the passenger front door kick panel all the way down the body frame rail on the passenger side and to the connector, which is on the other side underneath the bed. This wiring harness will go from the kick panel right here with all of these connectors and run to a grommet underneath the carpet, and then the rest of the harness will be fed through the hole and then routed all the way down parallel with the bed frame on the passenger side. First off, you're going to need to take off the door scuff plate right here and the kick panel cover right here. Alright, so back to the harness. We're going to have this Y splitter right here on one end of the harness. It has some inline fuses built into it. And what you're going to do is remove the factory connector, which is this bottom blue connector, and disconnect it. You'll notice on the connector there's some slots. There's two slots right here on one side. They look like female end, like lines going across, and then you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 male type slots on the other side of the connector. This is to make sure that you are plugging into the correct connector, which is this bottom blue one right here in the corner. You're going to have another one right above it that looks blue as well and looks almost identical. But if you take a closer look, the back side has 1, 2, 3, 4 female slots, and the front side also has 4 again. So this is to keep you from accidentally swapping connectors from one connector to the other. So this way you know exactly which connector you're working with. And in our case, we're dealing with the very bottom blue connector. Now this is an airbag connector. All airbag connectors on every vehicle are yellow, so don't mess with this. Don't zip tie to this. Don't touch this connector at all for any reason whatsoever. But yeah, with that being said, we've got the bottom connector disconnected. We're going to take our Y splitter at one end of the harness, and we're going to plug in this Y connector right here on the bottom of the blue connector. And then the other end that we disconnected, we're going to plug in right here on this side of the harness that is covered by the foam insulation. So with the factory harness, plug one into the existing connector right here on the side of the kick panel. The part that you disconnected, plug into the insulated Y splitter right here, and you'll be good on this point. Now before we secure anything, what we're going to need to do is route this wire harness through the body, so we need to do that next. In order to do that, we're going to need to pull the carpeting up, and that is really simple to do. Let me move all the stuff. In order to do this, once you have your scuff plate removed and your kick panel removed, the carpet is just actually held in by this plastic right here, which you can pop out by hand. So you roll it back out of the way so you can access the grommet area where the harness will go through. So once you move your carpet back far enough, you're going to see this foam piece right here underneath the carpet. And underneath this black foam piece right here, you're going to see, it's really hard to see, right there, you're going to see a grommet. It's just a rubber grommet. It's right here that you'll pop out with your hands. Now you can hopefully see a hole with some light shining through. That's where you'll route the wire harness through. You'll have a grommet that's already pre-installed on the harness right here. This grommet is where you install on top of the existing grommet that you removed. I believe Toyota wants you, it has a little arrow on this grommet right here. Toyota wants you to, if you're facing forward, wants you to install that at the 4 o'clock position. So if you're thinking about a clock and you're looking forward, it'll be in about this position right here. So we're going to feed this entire harness through up to the grommet through that hole, and then we'll place the grommet in place and then connect everything up here by the kick panel. Alright, now that the wire harness is routed through the hole and the grommet is in place, let me go and show you what it looks like. I know, again, it's really hard to see, but underneath here you have your grommet in place right here underneath this black foam. And then what you'll want to do before we put the carpet back, is Toyota offers you these felt adhesive strips, and what you want to do is remove the plastic backing to expose the adhesive, and you'll want to secure your harness on this black foam piece right here, running parallel with the black plastic foam. So secure your harness using these adhesive strips that Toyota provides. At that point, we can move to the next step. Now that the adhesive strips are installed and the wire harness is secured to that black foam piece, now all we need to do up here is to plug in our connectors. So again, we're going to have this white connector right here on this Y splitter. It is going to go in place right here on this bottom blue connector, and then the insulated connector right here. We're going to take the original harness that we unplugged, or the original connector that we unplugged, and we're going to plug him in right here. Now, at this point, you can just secure the connector as best as possible. But again, whatever you do, you can use the zip ties that Toyota provided, But again, whatever you do, do not zip tie to this yellow connector. It's an airbag connector. You don't want to mess with it in any way. Any car that has a yellow connector is an airbag connector, so don't zip tie to this connector. You can zip tie anywhere else to secure the harness, just not this yellow connector. Now that the wire harness is secured inside the cabin of the vehicle, we are going to go underneath and route the rest of the harness along the frame rail on the passenger side back to the end of the bed of the truck to connect to the connector for the tailgate harness. So let's go ahead and get underneath the vehicle and I'll show you how I secure this harness. So I've ran the wiring harness down the frame rail on the passenger side. I'm going to show you. It's a little hard to see. My camera is very big, so it's hard to get in here, but you're going to have this original wiring harness right here on top of the frame rail that goes all the way down to where the grommet is that you installed when we were running the wiring harness. So all you're going to do is run the wiring harness down the passenger frame rail parallel to this bigger wiring harness that's sitting on top of the frame rail, and you'll want to zip tie the wire harness to the existing wiring harness. And what I've done is I've zip tied very loosely every 6 to 8 to 12 inches, however I felt it needed to be secured, but zip tie it loosely. Don't tighten it up just yet, because you want to make sure that you can run the entire harness down the passenger frame and route it before you actually secure it. So once you've secured, or once you've routed the harness and you know it meets the tailgate harness and that the connectors connect easily, at that point you're ready to go ahead and to secure the harness that you installed, and you'll just tighten all of your zip ties along the frame rail, clip off the excess of the zip tie with some scissors, and you'll go down the frame rail securing the zip ties to the existing harnesses. So right here I've got the zip tie right here. There's a little excess right here that I left in place. I'll probably add another zip tie right here, but just following this main harness that goes along the passenger frame rail, just zip tie your tail or your power lock harness onto the existing harness going all the way down. So you'll secure your zip ties, cut off the excess, and right here where the exhaust gets really close to the bed, you're going to have this heat shield. And this is where you're going to have the wire harness have the heat shielding installed on the harness. This is where you zip tie to the existing harness. You really don't have to take this heat shield off. It's really thin metal, and you can just bend it out of the way to get to where you need to get, and then bend it back when you're done so you don't have any heat shield rattles against the exhaust piping. But that's pretty much it. So now that the harness is routed, I will go ahead and secure everything and tighten down all the zip ties, and then we are going to see if this power tailgate lock actually works on this 2015 Tundra. Now that everything's secured, let's go ahead and reconnect the battery at this point so we can test everything out and see if this power tailgate lock kit actually works. So let's go ahead and install the negative back onto the post like so. And take a 10mm socket or a wrench or whatever in order to tighten it back up onto the battery. Wiggle it, make sure we are good. Everything's great. Everything's installed. Let's go to the back and see if this works. Our actuator is installed. Tailgate wire harness is installed, and the body wiring harness is installed. Everything's connected properly. We have power from the battery. Let's see if this actuator actually moves when we lock and unlock the vehicle. Alright, double clicking the unlock button twice on the key fob. It moved a little. It moved. That's a great sign. Now we're going to lock the car and see if it closes or locks the tailgate. All right, lock. It looks like it's doing its job. Tailgate should be locked. Click unlock twice. And now the tailgate is unlocked. At this point, we can put everything back together. The tailgate cover, the trim on the passenger front door, and we can make sure it's operational. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this video. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe, as 2021 will hopefully be the year of 1,000 subscribers. And in the meantime, I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.